Hello, and welcome to John and James. My name is John Hastings, and with my co-host, Mr.
James Seelow.
Mr. James Seelow, and special guest entrepreneur in the health tech space, and the co-owner of Nelson Advisors, health tech mergers, acquisitions, and partners. Welcome, Lloyd Price. How are you today, sir?
Yeah, very good. Thanks, J&J for inviting me.
Good man. I can see, like we said before we went on, you're in the Alps at the moment in one of your many properties, just sunning it up. Are you on a ski trip, are you?
No. It's unfortunately no. It's in sunny Buckinghamshire. So yeah, just in the Buckinghamshire. So yeah, not known for its mountains, but no. That's part of the long-term plan to do the cool from the mountains.
Don't forget us, okay?
Yeah.
It's like a vision board behind you. It's that kind of manifestation, right?
It's a long-term goal, a long-term wish list.
I like it.
Nice. I like it. So Lloyd, we'll kick off to see how have you arrived to where you are now. I was looking at your LinkedIn bio. There's like 4 exits, and you've been in the health tech space a long time. I love the articles as well. I found them super informative about what was going on. Lots of things I didn't know that was happening in the health tech space. So where did it all start from? Your younger days.
Yeah, no. Thanks for that. So where did it all start? Well, it actually all started. I played quite a lot of rugby when I was young, so I played for Northampton. So 95, 96, just as I went professional, I was part of the Northampton Saints Academy. And then, I played with people like Steve Thomas and Ben Cohen, and they obviously went on to win the World Cup. So I didn't manage to achieve anything like that. But I was played a couple of different positions. And then, I just got a lot of injuries. I had a double hernia. I broke my collarbone, my ankle. Just didn't recover from that. So basically I was kind of all set. I wanted to, have a crack at, being a sort of professional rugby player, but unfortunately that didn't pan out. I went to university, and then at university I actually wrote a dissertation on what is the potential of e-commerce for small businesses, because it was 96, 97, we were just coming online. It was like remember all those days, right?
I remember those days.
So anyway, I did that, and then whilst at uni, you just sort of started to see this thing called the internet was doing really well, and then like everyone, graduated, came to London, went for a couple of interviews. I mean, to be honest, the entrepreneurial stuff sort of started at university. Like, we started myself and a friend called Chris started a small, I guess now it's a marketing agency. Back then we didn't really know what it was, but we were helping people buy domain names, set up websites, and it was just our first venture into, and then I was going out and then interviewing businesses and then using that as my research to do my dissertation. So it all sort of started to happen. And then, to be honest, if I look back, a lot of luck. Like, if I'm really honest with you, a lot of luck, following my instincts. I'll explain sort of how I got to healthcare, but really my career, 25 years in, it's half of it's kind of e-commerce and technology, and the other half is kind of healthcare. The big switch kind of also was by accident, which I'll kind of explain. So there's never been a master plan. I've always trusted people, trusted my instincts, followed the market. I've always, I know some people are very, very strategic about their careers and they get time. I generally haven't been like that. I've just sort of followed the sort of the patterns. But look, so it all started off 2000. I joined a small company called Kelku, which is one of the price comparison sites at the time. If you remember, like CD Wow, and we used to buy our DVD.
That's right. Yeah, I remember.
So we were the first to do that. So went in there. We spent a couple of years. I really watched retail, travel, financial services, and automotive go through that digital transformation. And then, really with the advent of cost per click, PPC advertising, really understanding what ROI meant. And then look, we built that up, and that basically became Europe's largest shopping engine. And then we sold to Yahoo in 2004. And then I basically went and worked at Yahoo for 6 years, doing different divisions. And then at Yahoo, everything just 10x'd. We were in countries around the world, stuff in the US. And then again, what I saw was, again, sort of scale, branding, advertising, sponsorship. So basically everything I do is kind of, I guess, grounded in that kind of direct response. It's kind of, marketing, business development, working with people.
Was that your startup, Lloyd? Sorry to
No. So I hadn't done anything until healthcare. So
okay. So you was working within this company, and you saw it grow, and then it got acquired.
By Yahoo. Yeah. So looking back, again, look, there was like 6 or 7 price comparison sites. Again, we could have been moneysupermarket.com, or we could have been a startup that went, hit the wall and went bust. So again, a lot of luck's involved in joining these companies. I think one big lesson I've learned in my career is there's no skill in getting in. It's timing to get out.
Timing
is the skill.
Okay.
So you can get in, and the market's great, and the company's well funded, and the founders are dynamic, and you're solving a problem for people. But you've got to read the room. If you sort of start to see that the market's not quite there, then the skills in getting out. It's like an M&A, and it's like in anything in life. There is big skill in identifying, building, but unless you're out, you haven't really achieved anything.
Yeah.
So,
and is that something that you think you've always had, Lloyd, or is that an acquired skill, or do you think you've always had that way with relationships, or that awareness piece that's always been there?
Yeah, I mean, look, really good question. I think, maybe just doing lots of team sports as a youngster, football, cricket, rugby, always those team environments, always sort of getting a sixth sense. When you're training with the team, like, shit, we're not ready, guys. There's no way we're going to win. Like, we're just not ready. Versus everyone's on it, and you're feeling part of a team, and you're training with people. Everyone's raising the standards. Everyone's raising the bar, and you just get this feeling, like, and it builds confidence. I always say to people when I meet teams now and stuff, I look for that Eric Cantona moment when someone just puts up the collar and just
collars up. Yeah,
we are Manchester United.
This is
you just look for that, someone stepping forward. And just
possibly not doing a flying kick into the crowd, but
correct,
something along those.
But but looking back, being probably one of the best signings in the Premiership in history. I remember seeing interviews of Roy Keane and Giggsy, and they said, look, Cantona was that final piece of the jigsaw that really we all he just walked out with such supreme confidence, supreme. So now when I meet teams and investors and stuff, we look for who's the Eric Cantona,
the charismatic leader. Is that you see that on Dragon's Den, don't you? The people, they're not really buying into the business model as such. They're buying into that person who they believe is going to do it.
Exactly. So anyway, did that, and then we did the Yahoo thing, and then built that up. Then actually, funnily enough, 2009, I think it was. 2008. A lot more movement. So Microsoft actually made an offer to try and buy Yahoo. Yahoo then looked at all its assets and then started to sell off assets. So actually, the marketplace division, which we were in, which was retail, travel, financial services, and automotive, that actually got put on the block. And then we actually got sold to private equity. And the guys that bought it were the guys that built uswitch.com. So the guys that did all the, the sort of, energy and tariffs and everything. So they really understood this kind of world of, price comparison and everything. And then I did more of a kind of corporate development job. We focused on launching retail and stuff into places like Brazil and Poland and America and Canada. So that gave me the first exposure to sort of, I guess, doing deals and working with investment banks and stuff. So that was really good fun. And then, another big change came in 2010, where I got a call from Heidricks and Struggles, that were quite a big sort of recruiter and headhunter. And they said, there's this company based in Soho, and it's kind of dating, social networking, and they're looking for a chief marketing officer, and would you be interested? So anyway, when I met the guys, and the company turned out to be a company called Badoo, which then became Bumble, which became one of the market leaders in dating. So I joined along with a lot of people in 2010. And it was just mind blowing, like the level of skill that the guys were executing on. The first office was above a guitar shop in Soho. But
you joined Bumble, did you, as a consumer or as a?
No, because I'd actually left by then. So no, Andre brought the founder over, because basically she fell out with the guys from Tinder.
That was right.
And Andre brought her over from things. So what the funny thing is, this is all a million miles from healthcare, you see. So I'm just setting the scene that
I like this. This is the winding road of entrepreneurship.
This is the stuff that we want. So just quickly, Lloyd, what was it that convinced you to join these guys? So you come along, they're a startup presumably, but what was it that made you feel like this was something I want to get involved with?
A couple of things. Number one, when I met the founders, particularly Andre, who's the founder. Andre is an incredible person. He's very, very difficult to work with. But he's amazing. The reason I joined is because they had a business model that I'd never seen before, and the business model was basically at the top of the search results, either on the app or on the website. There was 12 photos, a bit like us now, 12 photos, and you had to pay £1, $1, or €1 for your dating profile to be at the top of the search results until the next person paid £1, $1. So you literally went along like that. So we called it the spotlight. Right. So you were in this, so, this was the advent, and the other reason I joined was this was the advent of location-based services. The iPhone came out,
of course,
and now suddenly it's like, do you remember Foursquare and checking in and all that stuff?
Yeah.
So again, the business model was what we called SOLO-MO, so it was social, local, and mobile, and that was the first time we'd seen that. It turned out to be very, very defendable. I mean, look, an example I can give you: when we joined, the company was turning over 400,000 a month, so pretty profitable. But 3 months later, the revenue was 15 million a month. It just exploded.
Wow!
And that was all down to you, Lloyd, wasn't it?
No, I would love to say
single-handedly.
No. I would love to, but no. I mean, so again, look, in your career, like I had that early. I saw us build up to Kelku, and then we sold to Yahoo, and then at Yahoo we had massive data sets, global. It was a huge brand.
Yeah.
Then look, then we did this. We sold, and then we sort of did stuff around the rest of the world. Yeah, then suddenly I'm in this sort of environment where it's all mobile apps, and it was payments companies like Boku, Adyen, because when we first joined, you actually were charged to your teleco provider. So if you had an app originally, if you spent any money on the apps, you got charged by Vodafone, by O2, by BT, whatever. So there was a big shift. I mean, now obviously we all do Stripe and Adyen and all that stuff, but it was, back in the day, it wasn't like that. So anyway, learn the lessons there, and learn a lot of lessons. The guys who ran it were Russian, and they taught me a big lesson, which is, always look at the sort of downside first. So how do we get hurt by doing this? So how do we get? So I've always taken that forward in my career. So they said, Lloyd, this is brilliant, but before I sign this contract, what are the 10 things that can go wrong, and how badly can it hurt us? And they always talked about, we want to understand the boundaries, like where is it that we get wiped out? And I thought it was very interesting, because I think in America and Europe, we're always upside. This contract, we're going to make 8 million. Well, we could make 8 million, or we could get sued and lose 4 million. So where is that? So that taught me a big lesson.
I think Richard Branson said something like that, didn't he, when he bought his aeroplanes, when he was sort of protecting the downside and buying them on a contract with Virgin, and that was all really about protecting downside, wasn't it, on that one?
Well, actually, the genius, I've actually listened to that podcast. The genius that Branson did was he went and rented the airplanes, so I think he said 40,000 a month, but then selling tickets in advance. He was self-funding, so he was never out of pocket.
He was never, it's very clever,
It's a clever model. So he never actually bought £100 million aircraft. What he did was leased it, and then with the ticket sales, that was the cash flow.
And if it didn't work out, he was going to give them back. So
exactly.
But
then he actually talks about buying the oil in advance in the futures is the expensive bit, because obviously you buy the plane, and then you've got to have the access to all the obviously all the petrol and the diesel to fill the planes, but all around the world. So you've got to have negotiate contracts with all the different airports. So when you listen to what Branson says, the genius that he got was, the selling it forwards. But no, so they was good guys. Anyway, look, Badu becomes a huge success. I actually left after 2 years. A lot of us left. It was a very fast growth, very high impact, a couple of my mates say it was like that kind of special forces time. You did 2 years, and then your head is so because it was so intense but really successful that you just can't keep up. We work in evenings, weekends. It was good fun. The company was very successful, and I think I look back in my career, and I now know what success looks like, having been through it a few times, and you just get that sense. Everyone's on it. It's just and also it's just standards. Like, you're walking into the office, and I'll give you a very quick anecdote. So I remember we wanted to release something, and the technical team, I think it was actually for Android, so to release the Android app, the team came back, and something like it was 20 weeks. That was the assessment. And Sergey, who was the CTO, just went, no. Picked up his desk from one side of the office, moved it to the other side of the office, and said, we're having 2 stand-ups, 9 and 2. We're going to do this in 10 weeks. And everyone thought he was crazy. Everyone thought he was nuts. And just seeing the psychology of getting people to believe that you can do it. And Sergey being very, very technical, and he was leading and solving the problems.
Yeah.
It was, if I'm honest, it was astonishing to see, because it was an open plan office, the confidence build, and then suddenly people were believing. And for Sergey, he was just totally like, well, I told you we'd do it in 10 weeks. Like, what's the problem? Sure. And it was so this attitude that was the Canton moment.
Sounds like
unwavering
a
belief, isn't it? Steve Jobs, isn't it? Yeah.
Steve Jobs has got that, hasn't he? He just had that, right, this will get done. I don't know how or care how, but you will sort it.
It's just, this is happening. Sergey would say, this is happening. And then
it's that kind of fine line, isn't it, between that sort of belief system and being a psychotic. It's this sort of, unwavering belief to say that actually this is going to happen, whether you guys like it or not.
I totally agree.
This is what we're going to do, and everybody better get on board with it.
Basically, but what's interesting is as we got to know the guys a lot better, they've actually done it. They've actually built 5 companies in the last 20 years.
Okay.
So Andre's actually done this many, many times, and it's incredible.
Fascinating.
Yeah, like
and he's only 19 years old, wasn't he?
No. Andre he must be about 50 by now. If you want to Google it, he's just bought the entire top floor of the American Embassy in Mayfair. He's bought all 3 flats for 145 million and knocked them all together into one big apartment in Mayfair. And it's in Grosvenor Square. If you want to Google it, like, just give you an idea.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. But listen, super, super successful. But I'll tell you another big lesson I learned, which is those guys turned up to work every day. There was no BS, no excuses. Even at this phenomenal level of personal wealth and success, they're there to win. And they turn up every day. Look, sometimes it's 10:30 and they're a bit hungover and whatever, but every day they could have easily coasted, and they didn't. They chose not to. They said, no, we are here to work.
That work ethic.
The fascinating thing for me is we read these books on, self discovery, self-improvement, and you hear about those kind of stories. There's the unicorns in business that are those type of individuals. But you've actually experienced it firsthand. There aren't many people, when you look at, the entirety of the world, that have actually come into physical contact with these individuals. So what would you say that kind of main characteristic is of those type of people that are able to do the things that other people aren't prepared to do? I mean, that's clearly one of them.
Yeah,
I think. What defines them, do you think?
I think there's fire burning in their stomach, and then also there's a chip on their shoulder. So somehow growing up, they were either the poor kid or they, were one of 6 and not really had a lot of family time. And then they're just driven. They are just incredibly driven. I don't know if you guys are into tennis, but Jimmy Connors, the player, used to say it's very difficult to beat someone who doesn't give up. And Jimmy Connors used to say he's not the best tennis player in the world, but he just does not give up. And and people like Rafael Nadal, they just do not give up. And it's that fire, and if we think about, look, obviously, there are a lot of analogies between sport and business. A lot of it's people, a lot of it's teamwork, a lot of it's psychology. How do you get that extra 1%? Handling pressure, not panicking under pressure. Teamwork, but then everyone's got individual roles, but we are a team. If everyone just does their job, you'll get through. So I think the parallels between sport and business, there's a lot. But I think the other thing I've learned from successful people is they don't do it. They kind of don't do it for monetary value anymore. Yeah. They do it because they can do it. And also they like to win, and they want to work. And also I think what you learn is the more successful they are, the less tolerance they have. Like the more successful people, you're in the room for like 30 seconds. And if you're not adding value or they think it's boring, like they just tell you.
Yeah. It's gone. It's gone.
They are.
Yeah.
I think the other lesson I've learned is these guys are like apex predators. Yeah. They are not out to impress you. They are very comfortable and secure in who they are. They are apex predators. A lion doesn't run around the jungle saying, "Oh, by the way, I'm a lion."
Yeah.
Everyone knows he's a lion. A shark doesn't swim through the ocean going, by the way, guys, I'm a shark. Like everyone knows he's a shark, right? And that's what I noticed with these guys. There's no time for like trying to impress you. It's the other way around. You have to impress them. They are not.
I don't believe it's an arrogance thing. I think it's just that it is what it is. This is the reality of what's going on right now. They're not having to prove anything.
It's pure self-confidence and self-belief is what it is. It's an unwavering ability to say, I'm just going to get it done. And that, I mean, that is entrepreneurship. In my opinion, look, being in 6 or 7 different industries, being on teams that have won, that have lost, you know, done it myself. I think it's a couple of things. It's focus, just this out and out ruthless focus. And to be honest, a lot of it's saying no to things, like just really understanding, like, no, that's not what we do. No, we don't do that. No, that's not our mission. No, that's not our purpose. You know, the second thing is just, finding people that, you know, want to work with really good teams. You know, it's not about the number of people. It's just, you just need a handful of really good people to really move things. You need a handful.
It's finding those people, isn't it? I think that's identifying the talent is the key thing.
And I think, you know, if you think about real entrepreneurs, you Steve Jobs and, you know, all these guys, Elon, their mastercraft and their superpower is finding and blending teams of different skill sets. And also, I think the word that I use a lot is self-awareness. They're very clear what they will own and they're very good at. And then they just surround themselves with others. But it's that absolute honesty, like crystal clarity. Like, I'm very strong at this, but I'm weak at that area. But it doesn't matter, because when you combine all these sort of skill sets, and then it's leadership. And again,
Bezos has got it into the culture, isn't he, Lloyd? With you don't just have willy-nilly meetings. You've got to present why there needs to be a meeting and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm a huge Elon fan. Like, I have been for a long time. I think he's done something that, unless you're sort of like, you know, the early 1800 Americans like Carnegie and Rockefeller, somebody who's actually built railways from scratch. Like, actually, Elon is phenomenal. But like all people, he's on the border, and I imagine he's a nightmare to work with, because he accepts no. But I've had a drink and dinner with people that have worked in his companies, and what they say, the big difference with guys like Elon and everyone else is Elon solves the problem. He doesn't look to you to solve the problem. He leads the meeting to solve the problem, and that is a big difference. He doesn't ask the team for their opinion. He's like, right, guys, what I've heard that he famously turns up and says, like, what are the 3 biggest problems facing the company today? And then he literally solves the 3 biggest problems today.
Yeah.
And that is incredible. And then my other thing I love reading a biography on Elon is when they launched SpaceX, he was looking for a chief scientist, and he spent 2 years trying to find a chief scientist for rocket design. And in the end, he couldn't find anybody. So he became the chief scientist.
He learned it himself, didn't he? Literally, he's got that engineering first principles mindset, isn't he?
Correct. But he's like, okay, well, I tell you what, guys, I can't find anybody, so I'm just going to do it myself. And that is another massive trait. Okay, fine, I'll just get it done. Right, I'll do it myself. It just add it to my 15 things, but I'll get it done. And again, it's that, but I mean, I must admit, I think a lot of people don't quite realize how special these people are.
And it's rare, isn't it?
They don't quite realize how brilliant these people are.
Yeah. IQ, timing, there's so much to it, isn't there?
Yeah, but then also convincing people. You've got to drag people on a journey internally, then you've got to sell it externally. I think a lot of people just,
Would you say risk appetite as well, Lloyd? Because some of these people are like on the verge of losing billions and they're still functioning. Like there's high risk as well.
Well, they don't see it as risk, you see. That's the big difference between you and I. They don't think they're walking a tightrope at 10,000 feet. They just say, what's the next step? And they just see it as a series of steps. They don't see it as risk. They're like, what's the next step? Okay, great. What's the next step? What's the next step? So they break it down. They're very engineering. They break it down to systems and processes. Another good analogy, I've heard certain people say, if you're skiing down a mountain through trees, 99% of people are looking at the trees. The other 1% are just looking to ski between the trees. Yeah, they're not bothered about the trees. That's the risk are the trees. but they don't see it like that. They're just like, well, I'll just follow through the trees. And then you're like, but you're going to hit a tree. Well, why?
If I don't look at the tree, I'm not going to hit it.
And it's that mindset. And in fact, I think mindset is literally everything. If you approach something with, I'm going to just get it done, I'm not here to finish second, I'm here to win. It's also, and listen, confidence is energizing, right? When you're in a room and someone steps forward and they're like, we can do this, guys.
You believe in it, don't you? You
that's a trait of a good leader, isn't it? That is a trait. Completely. We're getting some comments and questions in, Lloyd, just to sort of interrupt. So we've got Paveen, who comes on fairly regularly on our show. So she's putting up, I think, a few comments. I think let's go for one. So we were talking about Elon Musk and saying about neurodivergency. In those leaders. So it's, maybe they are wired seemingly on the surface differently. But again, we talked about the drive in which, makes this something that is compelling that they have to do. It's not something that they cannot do with their lives, that there's this drive that you were talking about.
Yeah, for sure.
That makes them be that way. And also, Oliver. So what are the common traits you guys have seen in great leaders? I think we kind of alluded to that, didn't we? Earlier, we were talking about that, almost a kind of character trait blueprint, the charisma, the drive, the determination.
Self-awareness as well as a big
self-awareness.
Self-awareness, that's a good one, That is a very good one.
And just inner confidence and inner belief, just pure inner belief. That's a big trait.
Yeah.
So moving on then.
Yeah, sure.
I think we'll move into the health tech space.
Sure.
So Ashala, hopefully I've pronounced your name right, Ashala. She's interested to get insights on the future of health tech. So what are the big trends and where are the opportunities right now?
Sure.
So that's a great question, I think, that's going with that.
Yeah, great question. So I think, so what are the trends, the themes? I think if we look back, we're kind of in the third wave. So I think 2008, 9 into 10, health tech was quite immature. We didn't really have the infrastructure, and the early successes were things like, quantified self. Everyone was tracking movement. You had Fitbits, you had Strava, you had all that stuff. And it was just the early days. Then I think, my personal opinion is, I feel Apple blurred the lines between health, wellness, and fitness, because doing 10,000 steps, tracking your sleep, then that's not medical. Like, that's health, wellness, fitness. That's all kind of blurred in. So I think we then started to get a bit of a blurring. Then, you've got these kind of, force multipliers, as Silicon Valley would call them. And force multipliers, really, there's probably three big ones. So it's cloud-based. So suddenly everything went on-prem into the cloud. So everything could scale really quickly. The next force multiplier was the smartphone. Suddenly it's location-based. You had a computer kind of in your pocket. And then the third one was just this sudden explosion of apps for everything, apps for everything day and night. So really, suddenly this huge amount of supply came into the market. So, and we haven't really changed in that. At the moment, there's just a lot of what we call hardware, software, apps and devices, millions and millions of them all day long. So I think the question, so where's it all going? I think undeniably AI is here to stay. I always say to people, in my opinion, AI is a bit like a smartphone. Like, it's not going away now. Like, we're all going to use our smartphones, and there's always going to be AI. The question is, where do you use AI and how do you use it? So if we think of the mega trends or the kind of tailwinds, as I call them, you're either going into a headwind or something's pushing you through the kind of market. And I think the tailwind is definitely, there's appetite. Women's health has come, FinTech movement. We're starting to see, definitely more data, more interoperability, more integrations. So AI is definitely playing a big part. I think we're starting to see, where it's going, I think we're starting to also see that kind of, another big trend is sort of scanning. So guys like the Spotify founders, Daniel Ek, has launched Medical Health into the UK, and that's a full body scan. It's basically an MOT once a year.
Sure.
You're going to go to a clinic, It's going to get a full body scan. So this idea of what we call preventative. So you go have a blood test, have a full body scan. That's definitely the way the market's moving.
There's been quite a bit of pushback to that, Lloyd, isn't there? I think there's a lot of certainly specialists in the field saying, well, it's surplus to requirement, that all you're going to do is create anxiety for people that are having these full body scans, that the efficacy of it isn't 100%, and is it going to cause more problems? So it's a really interesting, nuanced market, I think, isn't it?
I think what we always have this disconnect between kind of education and technology. And what I mean by that is, so you can run all these scans and reports, but we're not educated as a patient or as a consumer. I don't understand.
What do you do with that information?
I don't understand what it all means.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So there's that kind of gap. So I think what healthcare professionals are saying is, to me, as a qualified professional, I understand everything on that report. And this is a summary and it's an indication. It's not a full in-depth analysis. So I think healthcare professionals are sort of pushing back, saying, okay, great, so you have an MOT once a year, but what are we supposed to do with that? It's not a full in-depth, CTI or an MRI scan. Like it's kind of it's a very lightweight, thin, horizontal approach, whereas medicine's very specific. It's very vertical. It's very niche. So, so I think there's that other mega trends. I think, look, just at the moment, so particularly in the UK and the NHS, we're calling it the digital left shift. And what we mean by that is, at the moment, care tends to be in these hubs, so GP surgeries, pharmacies, hospitals. But now it's kind of shifting left, and that's coming back to you as the person. So things like self-management, almost self-care. It's like you've got to take responsibility as well. You're the sort of third actor in your healthcare plan. Also, we're trying to get more care into the community. So if you think of a hub and spokes, like on a bicycle, we want more care in the spokes. So we want more care into the community, because there's these sort of pressure points: GP surgeries, hospitals, pharmacies. Whereas in a lot of other countries, so in Europe, for example, it's very common to go to the pharmacy first. And you, in your relationship, because in Europe they don't tend to have GPs, they don't tend to have general practitioners. You go to the pharmacy and they say you need the ear doctor, you need the eye doctor, you need the ENT specialist. And in the UK we're very gatekeeper driven with the GP, and very gatekeeper driven like with A&E. So it's a slightly sort of different model. So I think you're going to see innovation kind of around there. Where else is the market going? I think, efficiency. Really, we've got two big problems if you boil it all down. On the left-hand side, we don't have enough staff. And on the right-hand side, you have 10 million people waiting for treatment. So there's 10 million people on the elective care backlog. Interestingly, there's now 10 million people off work claiming benefits. So if you think about cause and effect, the fact that people haven't been treated, they got a bad back, they got mental health issues, they've got, other issues, they are now not able to work. So which do you fix first? Do you fix, right, let's treat everybody, and therefore they get back to work, and therefore they pay tax? Or do you say, right, we need to stop paying you benefits, you've got to go back to work, and therefore you'll get treated at some point? So there's going to be all these little things. I think one of the mega trends is we're going to see a blending of health and work.
Okay.
In the US, for example, your employer is legally responsible for your health. So your insurance is through your employer. So losing your job in the US is a big deal, because you then lose your medical insurance. Whereas in the UK, you see, we have this culture of it's free. We treat healthcare like we treat the internet, which is, well, of course, everything's free. I download it, I go to YouTube, I listen to this, do that. Like, of course, I'm not going to pay. And that's our attitude to healthcare, because we're in this single payer government funded market. So you're definitely going to see. And the other two examples I always like to give, NHS dentistry is not free. It is free if you're under 16 or in full-time education, but everyone else pays £25, £49, whatever. That is a future blueprint.
Yeah. I was going to say, is there a level of contribution, even if it's a couple of quid a month, but that all over the population of the UK, that adds up to a pretty decent sum, doesn't it?
Correct. But I think it's now unsustainable that we can expect just free at a point of access. The fact that it's just continues to be free, I think it's just unsustainable. And that's not a political statement. It's not anything. It's just the facts. We can't continue. The cost of delivering care just keeps going up and up and up. But yeah, look, there's lots of trends. There's lots of trends, I think. But really, there's two big issues to focus on: is the workforce and then care delivery. So what we call the elective care backlog. They're the two pressure points. If you can help take pain away from delivering care or just actual humans, nurses, doctors, specialists, then you're really gonna get somewhere. If you can use AI, great. If you can use another system, great. But that's where the pressure is. The pressure's on the system in the front lines to deliver care.
Because James and I are from the health and wellness background. We were starting off as personal trainers, running personal trainers companies and corporate well-being. I was at Santander for a long time. But what we found is there seems to be more services than ever in terms of health, but actual social health in terms of obesity and people overweight is 70% of the Western world. Diabetes is going up. Cancer in the under 50s is rising. Mental health problems rising, in terms of medications rising. So we seem to get more tech, more health services, products, but actual societal health seems to be getting worse. Life in terms of longevity is going up, but actual health span is pretty low. It's like managing sick people. What do you think about that, Lloyd?
Yeah, I mean, so look, obviously sort of working in healthcare for the last, 10, 12 years, a lot of people talk about diet, lifestyle, exercise, stress, and sleep. And what they're saying is those are the big five. So, if you start off with obviously diet, obviously a huge part of what we eat. So processed foods, snacking, heavy carbohydrates, lots of pasta, lots of, anything that is delivered by somebody on the back of a moped or a bike is fast food. And unfortunately, not particularly healthy. So, but again, technology's played a big role in making it very easy, making it cheap, making it very efficient. So that's kind of a problem. So diet, then you get to lifestyle. If you are drinking, smoking heavily, it's going to have an impact on you. Then you get to kind of exercise. If you're not exercising, then, and I understand some people, it's time, it's money, it's location. Stress obviously is a big part. If your body's constantly stressed, you're producing cortisol, you're constantly inflamed. And then the last one, obviously, sleep. Sleep's probably the superpower. People that get, good 6 to 8 circadian rhythms do really well. So I think, yes, obesity, yes, all these, but it's not simply you spiking your blood sugar level. It's a lot more nuanced than that. It is your lifestyle, you're sleeping up late, your diet's not good, you're stressed, you're not sleeping very well. But again, which problem do you tackle first? Which one of the five do you tackle first?
Yeah, that's what we found, Lloyd, is that people know it. When you get somebody on the scales and they're overweight, it's not a data problem. It's it's an adherence problem. So the tech is not really seems to have helped or solved the main issue, do you think?
Well, so I'm on the board of a company, so we specialize down in Bristol in musculoskeletal health. It's a company called Get You Better, and we're now actually the market leader for what we call MSK, self-management. And the guys there have really educated me in the last 3 or 4 years around what they call COM-B, so COM, and that stands for capability, opportunity, and motivation. So to change, you've got to be capable. You've got to actually understand where you are now and what you're trying to do. The opportunity, if you put your running shoes by the door, if you just remove all the obstacles, so you literally can just get up, go downstairs, if you find the time, you walk the dog, if you have the opportunity, then by removing all the obstacles. And then lastly, the M, the motivation. You've got to want to do this. You've got to want to change for yourself. And it's a lot actually what they talk about in addiction, where you've got to want to change. And it's a bit like in addiction where they talk about, addiction's not the problem, addiction's the solution. You're addicted to drinking because you want to take pain away, or not the fact you're drinking, you're trying to solve a problem by drinking. It's cause and effect. The effect is you're drinking, but the cause is you've got mental health issues, you're worried about money, something's happening in your personal life. So again, I think there's so many opportunities to learn from all areas of different parts of the healthcare and society to apply it. But at the end of the day, it's people, right? You got to want to change. You got to have the tools. You got to have the right mentality. Personally, I'm a big believer in the buddy system. If you have a buddy, someone that training partner, a work colleague, a friend, if someone always motivates you, and there's always days that you're a bit down or you can't be bothered, but a buddy system, does lead to higher performance. Because
it's accountability, isn't it? You're accountable to somebody else.
Yeah, because you're not just letting
yourself
down. Yeah, if you're not turning up, then you're also letting them down.
Exactly.
So I think there's a lot in that. So I think technology plays a role in all of this, but at the end of the day, we are all human, and I think I call it front running. Technology is running ahead of all these problems. It's running way ahead. And the reason that is because people are focused on the application of the technology, what it can do, not the application of the technology to that problem. So the fact that it is a whole new way of a whole new large language model, or in blockchain, it's a whole new decentralized node-based consensus system, that's fantastic. But that's not a use case for healthcare. We're trying to apply technology to an area. And I think then we all focus on we focus too much on the science of it all and not really the application of it. Well, is it actually making change? So I've got 15 gadgets on, but
it sometimes feels like it's sticking plasters.
Yeah, a lot
Lloyd,
of it,
isn't it? To use a kind of an analogy, but it's almost like the whole thing needs to be built from the bottom up again, sort of dismantled and reassembled in a way. It's like we're trying to kind of retrofit stuff onto a system that's already very broken, and the foundational pieces aren't really there to be able to sustain all of this. So it's almost like we've got to go kind of, dare I say it, root and branch, that it's got to come from the bottom and then filter up to the top to sustain all of these things we're trying to.
Yeah, for sure. I think, but it all starts with the person, right? It's not the system; it's the person.
Yeah.
And how do we motivate, and how do people take ownership? How do people take responsibility? I mean, one of the things I've seen a lot recently is sort of this idea of what they call citizen health, which is we have to understand that we are citizens in this country, and therefore we have to sort of almost agree to certain principles that we need to listen to healthcare professionals. We need to try to change our lifestyle or our diet. We need to, because we have a responsibility, just like healthcare professionals have a responsibility. And I think we often, as people, we often forget the role that we play. The guy in the white coat that gives me the test results, he's going to tell me everything. Well, yes, but that's 1% of the equation. You are the 99%. You've got to actually make this happen. And I think, but look, I mean, we can go.
It's a big one, isn't it, Lloyd? It's a very complex. I think first principles. I think if you really want to tackle health, you're probably going to have some systemic change, which might come around through AI. People will be working less. Potentially, consumerism will go down. House prices. There's lots of things that go into it. My wife's a doctor, and her friends, in London and in America. In America, they've got a McDonald's within the hospital. So, what do you do? Yeah. What do you do then?
Well, remember, was it 30 years ago? They'd sell cigarettes in hospitals, and you could smoke on a plane. You could smoke at work. You could smoke on a train. I mean, it takes time to affect the change. And that's the other thing I think the lesson you learn in healthcare, and also healthcare and technology, is everything takes a lot longer than you think.
Sure.
There are no shortcuts. There's no quick wins. This is not direct to consumer. This is not Amazon. It's not Uber. It's not Airbnb. You don't get hockey stick growth. You don't get massive network effects. You don't get huge organic inbound growth. It's just plodding away on a treadmill.
Another question that's come in from Sharla. She's saying, any lessons from Nelson Advisor Health Tech portfolio who've achieved success in the UK NHS health tech market? So is any specific
loads of lessons
as an example that you could use?
Yeah, so I think number one, it's all about people. So healthcare is run by people. So it's what we call people, processes, infrastructure, and then technology. So if we take it sort of from the top, people, you've got to win hearts, influence minds, and manage egos. You've got to understand how to get things done. At the end of the day, healthcare is delivered by people. So you start with people. Then we come down to processes. So pathways, policies, processes, procedures. Everything in healthcare is very organized and structured. You're always on a pathway. You're always in a process. So
is there too much bureaucracy?
I don't think there's too much bureaucracy. I think that, it has to be organized in that way. You have to be referred. You have to have a scan. You have to have a blood test. There's no point in seeing the specialist without a blood test and a scan, because he can't help you, because his job is to assess. So is there a lot of bureaucracy? There's a lot of bureaucracy across, the NHS is like the 4th largest employer in the world. You've got like the Chinese Communist Party, Indian Railway, something in South America, and then suddenly the NHS. There's just one of the largest employers in the world. So I think there is inevitably a lot of bureaucracy. And I've personally been in hundreds of meetings where you meet the director of transformation, the deputy director of transformation, the director of service transformation, the director of digital transformation, and there's like 7 people, and it is difficult to understand actually what is different between what everybody's doing. So there is a lot of over engineering, but at the end of the day, we don't run hospitals. We're not accountable for delivering 16,000 operations a week. Like, if they need all these people, they need all these people. I think that's the big difference. Other things, I think the reason people are successful, they really focus on a pain point and they really address the pain point. They don't get distracted with, this could be funky. They actually do the hard, boring stuff well. That is what, and they actually affect change. And that is what they're one of the things, again, sort of I've learned is we're in the business of change. We're not in the business of technology. We are trying to change a patient, an administrator, or a clinician's behavior and change. That's what we're trying to do. We're not there to sell technology. We're there to sell the change. The technology is the application. It's either a hardware, software, an app, or a device that will affect the change. But that is the business. We are in the business of change, and the people that understand that on day one, and then understand that it's evidence-based, people-based, change-based. They're the ones that make it. They're the ones that are successful. It's just because you've come up with a new system that can diagnose something. That's brilliant. But healthcare is a mountain, in my opinion. You can't move that mountain. You can only go through it. So I talk a lot about bridges and tunnels. You either need a bridge to healthcare or you're a tunnel and you've got to go through it. And going through it, things like integration, interoperability into clinical systems, and that's very much a product and tech approach. Building bridges is very much like partnerships, people, understanding pathways. That is how it's going to happen. And even more so today, there are more. I think we're hitting a point of what we call digital fatigue. People are like, but we had this before COVID. We had this during COVID. We're now after COVID. So it's just a different shiny something that I've got to retrain all my staff, redo all my risk factors, redo everything. And I think that's where, and again, people that really understand that are the ones. They are change makers. They're these people that are successful. The good news about healthcare is once you're in, you are in. You become almost a utility. It's like you are. That is the way they deliver that. That is the way they run that department or that service. The hard bit is getting in, building trust, confidence, then evidencing it, winning hearts and minds, managing egos. Because once you are in, you are in. They don't chop and change. And the lesson I've learned as well is when you're the incumbent, the next person coming in, they don't need to be twice as good. They need to be 20 times as good to justify ripping it all up,
doing it again.
So it is very defendable. Healthcare, health tech is very, very defendable, but you've got to do the seriously hard yards first.
When you start off, Lloyd, in that area, so when you're a startup and you're trying to find out your product market fit, say you're in any startup, how do you first even get in the door to even test what you've got, or like gauge what your hypothesis is of how to solve that problem? Because surely you've got to be in there to know what the problems are.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. There's a couple of different ways to do it. You can sort of direct, where you can just network, you know, just meet somebody who invites you in. So it's the first way is just direct. Second way, you could go and partner with an academic research agency. So in the UK, we have HINs, called Health Information Networks. There's one in every region. So their job is to really sit between kind of innovation, academia, and the NHS. So you could just present a paper or just go and talk to some more academic people. Another way is you can join like an accelerator. You could join like an incubator. You could go with literally what we call pre-seed, so pre-idea, you know, you want to meet other people, and they kind of matchmake, you know, and they say, look, we'll put you in a team. There's a few different ways of doing it. I think the people that are successful deeply understand the problem they're solving, and it all becomes a bit like method acting. You've got to go and actually, and I'll give you a good example. When we started to get successful at Zesty, we were invited in by guys in St. Tommy's Hospital to work on rheumatology and lupus. And, you know, we went in and we sort of, you know, developed the software and we gave it to the nurses. And we then had these regular check-ins every 2 weeks. And it was all kind of, yeah, it's kind of making a difference, but kind of not. And then it wasn't really until literally, I think I was walking to the lift, and one of the service managers said, Lloyd, if you really want to make a difference, like just come and literally shadow and sit here for half a day. Just visualize our problems and then come back and say how you can help us. And I thought, okay, I did that. So then I went and spent literally a couple of afternoons. And one thing I noticed, which is probably a good example, was there were so many phone calls coming into rheumatology and lupus. So rheumatology, like inflammation of joints and, you know, things like that. And a lot of the prescriptions were for anti-inflammation, but you can't drink alcohol because you're on your tablets. And as I sat there afternoon after afternoon, you started to hear, oh, hi, the doctor just changed my prescription. It's my wife's birthday at the weekend. You know, I haven't really been having drinks for 6 months, but can I drink? Well, no, because it's a different prescription. Oh, is there any way? Oh, come on, it doesn't really make a difference. And the nurses were spending so much time telling people alcohol-related questions. Thanks. So I said to them, why don't we just do an FAQ, put it on the website, and then put a voice message on the answering machine saying, hi, please go to www.gstt.nhs.uk/rheumatology/FAQ. And then I said to the nurses, why don't we do that? And literally, so we went around, did that. Anyway, to cut long story short, about 4 weeks later, I went back in, completely different reception. Oh, hi, Lloyd, how are you? Oh, yeah, the team wants to do a bit of a huddle in 10 minutes. Sat down. They're like, you've given us 2 hours a day back. I'm like,
something simple as that.
What do you mean? What do you mean? They said we've actually tracked, we've had a 40% decrease in inbound calls because the message is on the website, the message is actually up we put a poster in the outpatient clinic, and on the answering machine it says people are now learning, they're not bothering us. And they were like, thank you, you've given us our time back. And then the real kicker was they said, Lloyd, we can now spend more time with the complicated patients because
the quality of care as a result.
Because we freed up. And that's when I started. I mean, that's back in 2015, 2016. I started to realize that is the impact. It's sometimes the simple things. And I often think sometimes we should just go back. Do you know what the nurses really want? They just want to pick up the phone and call you. They don't want to schedule 15,000 appointments, you know, Zoom, Microsoft Teams. They just want the old dog and bone. Pick up, because you know what? 99% of people pick up the phone.
Yeah.
There's no connectivity problems. They don't have to train anybody. There's no security, indemnity, insurance risk. We just call you. Hi, how are you feeling today? Okay, we just got your results back. The doctor would like to see you. Listen, take it easy. Don't try and this hot weather coming, you know, really hydrate yourself. Simple things has a massive, massive impact.
It's a good point. You can over-engineer stuff, can't
we
you?
run around in healthcare and we try and apply like Google, Amazon, Microsoft, huge amounts of technology. But if you listen, understand the problem, sit with the teams, you know, people, processes, infrastructure, what have they actually got to work with?
Yeah.
It's a telephone and an answering machine and a poster. That's what they've got to work with. So coming along with another app in the mobile app, that's not going to do anything. So that's why people, processes, infrastructure, then where can the technology have the biggest impact? That is the playbook. And it's taken me a long, long time to realize that. You know, you have to take all the bruises, take all the cuts to realize that's what makes the difference. You know,
so Charlotte's just commented to say thank you for the insights.
Yeah,
so really appreciative of that, and the strategies for adoption.
Yeah,
she found it really informative. A lot has resonated with her. So
perfect.
She's doing a lot of things right. So it's a great affirmation, she said. So
brilliant.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know, Lloyd, what are some of the biggest challenges you face at Nelson Advisors, and some of the things that you're working on at the moment, or you look for when you're doing M&As or businesses that are like potentially going to do really well?
Yeah, so I think, so we look for a couple of things. So the first thing we look for is what we call scalable, sustainable, and then defendable. And what we mean by that is, like, how do you scale? How do you then scale sustainably, as in you're on a path to profitability, you're breaking even, like this thing's actually making money. And then lastly, what is your moat? Like, what is defendable about this? Because you can sprint ahead and solve a problem, but you've got to continue to solve that problem.
Yeah.
And kind of Moore's law, where, everything is getting reinvented and redesigned and re-engineered faster and faster and faster. That is very true and a very powerful statement. So I think that's the first thing. The next thing we look for is what we call multi-use case, multi-geography, and then multi-industry. What we mean by that is multi-use case. If you are just operating in diabetes, if you're just operating in kidney dialysis, if you're just operating in something, that's fantastic. But we want to see that this can be applied to multiple use cases. So, most hospitals tend to be medicine, surgery, pediatrics, and cancer. They tend to be obviously all the ologies, then surgery, pediatrics, obviously children, and then cancer, obviously cancer pathways. So we want to see there's about 70 outpatient specialties in a hospital. So we want to see you're in more than one. So we want to see that this technology can be applied. If you're an out-and-out diabetes specialist, we understand that. That's not a problem. So the first thing is that multi-use case. The second one is what we call multi-geography. Is it just NHS England? Have you gone to Wales? Have you gone to Scotland? Are you doing anything in Europe, anything in the US? So what we want to see is you haven't just designed it purely for the NHS. We want to see that this can be applied. A hospital in Kuala Lumpur, a hospital in Berlin, and a hospital in Canada operate the same as they do in the UK. Hospitals and healthcare is delivered in a very, very similar Victorian model, right? There's advances in tech and stuff, but ultimately it's pretty similar. So we want to see the application of it. So use cases, more than one, industry. So, NHS, insurers, private healthcare. Are you doing stuff with pharma? We also want to see that. But all of this is best case and in a perfect world,
of course,
right?
Yeah.
So then what we tend to do is score. So, are you scalable, sustainable, defendable, multiple use case, multiple geography, multi-industry? We look for more than just what we call tech and team. So really great people, really great tech, but, IP. What exactly is the IP? How much market share have you got? Me personally, I look very closely at three other things. The first is distribution and your channel partners. Scaling in healthcare is tough. Going one-to-one, one hospital at a time, one GP at a time is tough. If you have channel partners that are already servicing these customers, that you can have a value-added service, that's a big win. The second is, looking a lot for what we call evidence base. Like, has anything been published? Can you prove the impact? Yeah. And then lastly, we look very closely at your pricing model and your pricing strategy. A lot of healthcare is ARR, annually recurring revenue. A lot of it's SaaS based. So you don't buy, we talked a lot about services earlier. A lot of healthcare is like that. So we're looking for the stickiness. Like, can you be replaced overnight? What is the moat? What is the barrier to entry? We look at a lot of things like that because it's so hard to get going in healthcare. Once you do get going, you can pull up the drawbridge behind you.
Yeah.
And it's much, much harder for competition to come. So again, after, 10, 15 years in the industry, I've seen lots of friends build businesses. We've all been the same through challenges. You just start to adopt a bit of a sixth sense. You start to see what's going to be difficult and what isn't. But yeah, could talk all day about this, but that's kind of what we do for, yeah.
Okay, that is amazing. But is there anything else, Lloyd, that we could help you with, or anything else you want to share with the audience?
So Nelson, look, we really specialize in a couple of areas. Yeah, like we're a bit like an investment bank in the sense that we help people raise money, we help people buy companies, we help people sell companies, we help people grow, focus a lot on strategy. So if anyone's wants to have a chat about, they've got a healthcare technology company and they're thinking about internationalization, thinking about raising money, thinking about selling, want to develop a channel partner strategy, we can sort of help with all that kind of stuff. Always happy to meet people. It's never too early. One of our jobs is to sort of realize where you are in the cycle, and some people are in perfectly timed and others probably take another 6 months to a year. So always happy to chat. We can't help everybody, we're not magicians. We can tell you quite quickly, and if I don't know, I think someone in my network knows. So it's a couple of WhatsApp messages and someone will go, no, Lloyd, ask this question, that's the key question. I think the thing about healthcare is the longevity. You just get more and more people that trust you, more and more people that help you, because if I'm honest, I spend my life doing what I call 5-minute favors. I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll introduce you to this person, but if I get you in the door, you've got to perform me. All I do is shortcut you getting through the door, but plan, prepare, be ready. Because if
100%.
If I get feedback that you kind of weren't planned, you weren't prepared, it's all a bit of a, then we won't be making another 5 introductions, because this is a people business.
Yeah,
it takes years.
I was literally about to say, it's all about relationships, isn't it?
I totally.
And it's the whole M&A space. It's the relationship that you have with, if you've got a business that you're looking to acquire, whatever, it's the relationship you have with that business owner to
a lot of
make
it
them feel like they're they're putting their business, this is their baby, something they've built from scratch now coming to somebody else. So
completely,
it's about trust.
We call it knowledge and network. So you've got to have market knowledge that you can apply and almost pressure test, and then you've got to have the network. But what connects the two is the relationships. That's what connects the two. People picking up the phone, people answering your emails, people agreeing to meet you. And it's like any industry, we all know who the good, the bad, and the ugly are in the industry. If you play a straight bat, you add value, you stay relevant, it's all brilliant. There's an awful lot of consultants, advisors, and stuff in this world, like an awful lot. And I love them when it's like they all produce these big, insightful statements. It's like, guys, the industry is going through rapid change. George, 21 years old, working at Goldman Sachs. They're like, yeah, okay, mate, thanks for that.
You think,
guys, we're on the cusp of this, and you're thinking, Claire, 24, and you're just like, okay. Which fortune cookie did that come out of? And you're just
so that must be part of the frustration for you, is hearing those kind of pitches and having to sit through all of that and saying, look, guys, because they're coming into this going, this is the greatest thing ever. This product,
and it might be, and it might
be. But it's like if the team behind it, or they haven't done their due diligence, and there hasn't been that level of understanding of the product and its application, then it's too early.
Our job is, fun enough, probably like your two jobs of being personal trainers. Our job is to go, are you match fit? Because we know the speed and intensity when you step on that pitch. We know what it's going to be like, because we've been there and won trophies, right? We're like, guys, so we need to hit the gym, do some, get in the ring. We need to see, anabolic, great, aerobic fitness, great. Like, guys, you're not ready. Like, you're just not fit enough. You're going to get murdered. If you step on that pitch, you're going to get murdered. So guys, time out, need 12-week plan, 12 weeks to get you ready, to get you fit. And then let's
come
go
back.
And there's nothing. And it's like, and then when you point out why and where the areas are to improve, people respect that. When you just sort of say you're not ready, that's frustrating. You're not sharing. So when you say, look, guys, look, this you're off on this. You're off on this a bit. Your strength is not there. Look,
but I think that's also a telling indication as to the individual, the caliber of the individual. If they can take that feedback,
correct.
Correct. You know what, Lloyd? I really appreciate that. I think you're right. We'll go away. We'll work on it and come back. As opposed to somebody comes in and said, Lloyd, you don't know what you're talking about, mate. You're full of shit.
Exactly.
And like, we'll go to somebody else who appreciates the product that we've got and all that sort of thing. So that's a great leveler as well, isn't it?
Yeah. And also, so, I think one area that we talk about a lot at the moment is, are you coachable? Because, a lot of top, Olympic athletes, they're just looking for that extra 1%. They've applied everything else that, they're looking, can you help me achieve that extra 1% performance? Because that's what I need. And I think and those kind of people are very receptive. They're very humble. They listen, they learn, they don't challenge. They do push back and go, well, look, I tried it like this. And then they tell you 6 ways they tried it. And then you're like, you've really got something here. Because we say, okay, look, we understand that, but we're going to introduce the 7th way to do this. And then they go, okay, what is it? And then they listen and engage. So yeah, there is a lot of that. I think the big challenge at the moment is a lot of people are trying to go fast, cut corners, get results quickly, and just life's not like that. You can't gain a stone of muscle or lose 2 stone of fat fast. You can't build a healthcare business overnight. You can't. No. It just doesn't work. It's consistency. It's focus, being motivated. It's just it applies to everything in your life. Running business, how you achieve things. But then it also says a lot about you. If you sit there, everybody wants to be right and everybody wants to get it done quickly. And I understand that. Everyone's looking. And I think GLP-1s is the absolute perfect euphoria moment. You mean I just stab my butt once a week? I don't eat, and then I'm going to lose 2 stone in 3 months. Talk about that is the eureka moment everyone's looking for.
Yeah.
It's going to be
the equivalent of AI, isn't it? For the body, it's like, well, if I can, and when it becomes pill form, even more so that I don't actually have to inject myself.
Correct.
I can just take a pill and off we go.
Literally, we're kind of like back to the Matrix, aren't we? Like blue pill, red pill. It's like, but again, everyone's looking for that quick fix.
Yeah.
What's the GLP-1 of startups? What's the GLP-1 of building a business? Yeah. And it's like, guys, this, luck, massive luck, timing.
Yeah.
It's inside tricky. Knowledge.
Yeah. Tenacity.
Yeah. I'm just conscious of time. I've probably just got a couple more minutes
lastly, Lloyd, I just wanted to get your views on the big topic, obviously at the moment, AI. So are you seeing a lot of companies coming to you, like 40% of them now service plus AI integration? And what do you think of it in general? How big is this going to be in the next 5-10 years?
Yeah, so I think, to answer the second bit first, how big is it going to be? I think it's going to be big, but it's going to be quite staged and quite it's going to be like it's not going to be a rapid growth. Again, I think AI is exactly like the smartphone. It's here to stay. It's going to be a key part of how we live our life, but its actual impact will grow slowly over time as confidence, trust, and evidence is created. I think specifically in healthcare, really, AI's got 3 markets. It's kind of got what we call back office, so automation of rapid, regular duties and roles and processes. Then it's kind of got patient facing, so the AI learning from me by data points, making recommendations. And then the third market really is for clinicians, so things like image analysis. The AI can work 24 hours a day. It's not like a radiologist that will do an 8-hour shift or a 12-hour shift. So that's number 1. Number 2, the AI can learn and apply models quickly. So it can help. I think where this is all going is it's going to probably be the 80-20 rule. I think AI can produce 80% of a report or a summary. And then a human will then take that, add 20%, add reasoning, apply logic, think about the human factors. So I think that's where that's going. I think where we're starting to see a lot of the rapid growth is in that back office, and it's things like voice to text. So at the moment, it's what we call ambient AVT, ambient voice technologies. So really, it's like Siri and it's like Alexa, but then critically, it's doing the next step, which is producing a summary, producing a kind of the next part of the process. But a clinician has to sign it off. So it's like the heavy lifting. AI is like heavy lifting. It's going to do all the heavy lifting, but then ultimately us as a patient, us as a clinician, or us as a back office administrator, we have to do the final because the other point is, where's the liability? Where's the indemnity? You can't drag an AI into court. You can't drag an AI into a surgery or someone's died. Like, AI is always an enabler and a support tool. So that's the way I think it's going to go. I think let's not get carried away with Star Wars, Star Trek style. There's going to be a hologram scanning you.
Oh, come on, Lloyd. That's the fun bit.
I was hoping you were going to say that.
You spoiled it right at the end.
No, I think that is many, many years away. I think that's like
2 years.
No way. 25 years away, I think, at least. Yeah, I think that's a long way away. I don't think that's going to happen overnight. But look, AI is here to stay.
Yeah.
It's going to play a role in society. It's already playing a role. So many things are algorithm based in our life, from insurance premiums to, when we order package, delivery, logistics, so many parts of our life are pretty AI driven. Of course, healthcare is going to become the same. But yeah, and then what we see, we see a lot of people who are growing rapidly. They've really solved a problem. They're staying very niche. They're getting success because they're staying niche. They've also found something people want to pay for, because that's another key part. We can run around and offer all these amazing solutions, but at the end of the day, it's like what we call pains and gains. Like, there's got to be a pain point, an operating pain, a financial pain that you've got to come in, and then the client, the customer, hospital, doctor there has to be a gain. They have to gain time back, productivity, efficiency, accuracy, addresses the workforce challenge. Like, it's pains and gains.
Or improve patient outcomes fundamentally.
Yeah, correct. Which is ultimately why we're all here. But that's a very, very complicated and nuanced area. There's so many variables in that. But it's not really going to have to shoot, because I've got to.
Okay.
Yeah,
all
really
right.
appreciate you coming on. Thanks really everybody that joined the live.
Really amazing. Yeah, thanks guys, and thanks everyone for listening. And if we can help in any way, let us know, and appreciate your time. Good luck with the podcast. Yeah, just follow up email if I can introduce you to anyone. If there's anyone you sort of want to meet, then please let me know, and happy to help. And really appreciate it.
Yeah, great. Thanks a lot, Lloyd. Thanks everybody.
All right.
Take care. Bye-bye.